Hi there, and welcome to my battle report for Game 3 of the Alamo Primer Tournament, held on the 16th, which was today, at the game store known as Tabletop here in San Antonio. It's a great little gaming store. Please stop by if you're ever in town. Really friendly people and lots of space, lots of good stuff, and they can get anything you want. Anyway, now that I'm done giving free advertisement to Tabletop, free advertising, gentlemen, just letting you know. My last fight, neither of us are in the running to win. We can't win. The guys on table 1 behind us, whom you can see sitting in the chair and whatnot, they're the ones competing for first place. Me and my opponent here, Lance, are going to play a little dwarf on dwarf action. He's got Abyssal Dwarfs, and I've got my regular dwarves. He's only got 10 drops. And I made him drop three or four models on the first, or 3 or 4 units on the first drop of the scrying gem. But as soon as he started dropping them, he's like, okay, and drops, clearly starts building his castle up in the corner. And I'm thinking to myself, this is revenge for my 2 or 3 years of Warhammer Fantasy playing dwarves, and how I would set up and how I would deploy, sort of thoughtlessly. Not really thoughtlessly, but it certainly appeared that way. Anyway, he had a system, he had it set up. But I had a lot of extra deployment ahead of him, so I had several units I was able to put on the table. And as he was setting up, I noticed that his obsidian golems on the left-hand side were not really in a great position to protect his 3 mortars in the back. Those 3 flame machine nasty things are mortars. So he's got 3 mortars, he's got a couple of heroes that are riding monsters, he's got a horde of the guys with the breath weapon guns, and they've got an extra level of piercing from an artifact. He's got 2 hordes of obsidian golems, and then he's got 2 regiments of the Immortal Guard. I'm taking a second to say that Abyssal Dwarfs are great for the cost. Their obsidian golems are better than our earth elementals, only cost 10 points more, get crushing 2, have all the benefits of our earth elementals, and they also have vicious because they're in the army, and they only cost 10 points more. So they're straight up better than what we can get for our large infantry. The mortars are amazing because they have vicious. Again, vicious across the army is a great special ability, so much better than headstrong. It just has such synergy with everything that they can do. Their casters who are riding those things in the back which fly can heal and can cast all sorts of crazy stuff. They can surge. They're expensive, but they do so much. They do a ton. Anyway, now that I got that off my chest, we're going to go ahead and start the game. I lined myself up. My first drop was my organ cannon far on the left-hand side. He then deployed on the opposite corner, doing something I used to always do with my castling, which is to say, screw your shooting. It's never going to play a part in the game, which is how that played out. So I was down an organ cannon already. There's that lonely organ cannon that does nothing all game but move. In the center, I've got Earth Elementals. I've got my 2 units of Ironclad and my unit of Shield Breakers, backed up similar in structure to him, flanked by 2 guns. And then on the right-hand side, I'm like, this is where I'm going to win or lose this game. So on the right-hand side, I line up my cavalry and my 2 heroes, and I say, okay, the Berserker Brock Riders are going to go in. They're going to beat up on that unit of Obsidian Golems. I'll get in their face first with the troop because I'm faster than him, and then I'll throw my Brock Lord and possibly my King into his War Machines, and then I'll just come from the side and hopefully crush him. I'll treat him like other people used to treat me when I played a gun line, and hopefully that will go well. He gets the first turn. He moves. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that he had 2 troops of Harpies, which he didn't have models for because he's still building the army, so he just had the base for, which is fine. So one of those troops of Harpies comes out in front and chaffs, sort of to screen the Obsidian Golems, and he just sort of readjusts himself on the opposite side. And there's another picture of that. And there's his left-hand side. Again, nothing too exciting. Yeah, that's what happens. So all 3 mortars fire at the Berserker Brock Riders. 2 of them hit. He rolls boxcars for the number of hits. Because he's got vicious and it's piercing 2, he doesn't fail to wound at all. So he does something like 20 wounds to the unit, and they die before they ever move. This is really, truly where the game was lost for me. I'm going to play the rest of the battle, and I'll show you the rest of the battle because I think I make some smart moves and some dumb moves, and I think it's important to show. However, this was pretty devastating blow before I ever got to go, and now I know how those hordes of witch elves felt when I hit them with a grudge thrower shot back in the day and destroyed their Altar of Blood in one hit and a bunch of their elves. Yeah, now I get it, guys. You're right. I wish I could say I'm sorry, but I'm not because screw you, you play Dark Elves. But here we go. So that was kind of made me a little frustrated. Not his fault. He just got super lucky, and that's what happens when you have 3 mortars, right? So that's what I'm looking at now, which has a much different appearance now that I don't have a horde of screaming berserkers riding badgers to fight those elementals with. So I charge my Brock troop into his chaff. I'll hopefully pop the chaff and then advance afterwards to be right up in the face of the elementals. With any luck, I'll survive a round of elemental attacks. Maybe. We'll see. Vicious plus Crushing Strength 2 makes that kind of hard. Mantic, if you're listening, maybe you want to recost those guys. All hope isn't totally lost. These 2 heroes are actually pretty badass together. Against the big infantry, the Berserker Lord can do a lot of damage. He's also individual, so he can get around basically anyone, anytime, anywhere, if I'm smart about it. And the Lord can do some damage if he gets the charge, so maybe not all hope is lost. We'll see. He actually brought his hero out and charged the Brock Lord. I think he thought, for some bizarre reason, the Brock Lord was like some sort of mobile flame cannon or something. I don't know. Anyway, he wasn't really quite up to speed on what the Brock Lord was capable of, so he just sort of charged the Brock Lord in the front and then countercharged into the Brock troop, which had destroyed his chaff as expected in the previous turn. He destroys the Brock troop, unfortunately. I was kind of hoping I'd survive that, but man, is Vicious plus Crushing 2 amazing. Now I understand how it feels when you get hit with my Brock Regiment, which basically does that when it gets an open charge. But he reorients to face me. His Lord is going to do a few wounds to my Berserker Brock Lord, but he's not going to kill him. Yeah, he does 2 wounds to him, backs off an inch, isn't going to kill him. So I charge my king into his hero, probably a mistake. But my hope was to put some wounds on the hero and then back off. Actually, it was a huge mistake. I just got lucky. My Brock Lord did the hinky charge around the guy in front of him thing, where you can switch because he's individual, you can pivot before you declare a charge. I pivoted in such a way that I could still see just barely the back corner of that War Machine. I think the only reason I could do that is because it's on a bigger than a 50mm base, so probably not ideal. Probably not okay, but that's one of the disadvantages of different basing, I guess. Anyway, so I went into those guys and got the charge on them. Then I got the charge on my king into that guy. Yeah. Oh, wow. Lots of things have transpired between now and then. Let me go back. Anyway, so I hit that guy in the front. I don't kill him. On the following turn, his obsidian golems get into the flank of my king. We had a bit of a disagreement as to whether they were front or flank, but he moved them before we really gauged it, so neither of us could actually tell if he was front or flank. I'm pretty sure he was front, but it doesn't really matter. He didn't kill the king that turn. He charged in, he didn't kill the king, and he actually made a mistake, and he took his hero and turned it around and flew it towards my Brock Lord among his war machines. So all I had to do was survive the flank from them, which I did. Things are happening in the middle. I'm advancing, and that's about it. I'm trying to shoot. Oh, in the center also, he's got a unit of harpies that he's put behind my lines that I've hit with a flame cannon already twice and can't get to break. And I just keep shooting with the flame cannon and literally can't get it to break, rolling double ones or failing to. Anyway, it's hilarious. It's hilarious. It's comedy. Let me tell you, it's comedy. Anyway. So what happens is he fails to kill the king. He does 7 wounds to him but doesn't break him, which exposes him to a rear charge from the king into his hero, and I get into his other war machine. Yeah, here's the center. So this is my big fat mistake. You'll notice there's a bunch of wounds on that unit on the right-hand side of Iron Guard. I wanted to get him to go. I wanted to force his hand to move. And so I brought my Ironclad up, one of them into a position to get flanked, because it had a ton of wounds anyway, and I wasn't going to stop it from happening. And the other one to sort of get up there right next to them so that I could draw a charge from the Obsidian Golems. My thinking was that I will lose one or both units. If I lose, I will certainly lose the one that has got its flank exposed to the Immortal Guard, and that's okay. Then it just gets out of the way of my shield breakers. And then in the front, I figure if he doesn't kill the Ironclad, I'll throw my Elementals into the front, and I will hit them with Bane Chant to put a bunch of wounds on his Obsidian Golems. I'll bring my monster up, my Greater Earth Elemental up, I can get it into position for a flank charge on the following turn. The idea being he can't break the elementals or the unwounded ironclad in a single turn with those guys, or I hope he can't, and that'll be good. If for some reason he manages to kill both units, and he could totally do that, he could double charge in with his Immortal Guard and his elementals into my ironclad that's fresh, and then flank the other ironclad and kill them, then I'm going to be okay because, well, I hope I'll be okay because I'll be front charge from the shield breakers and also a front charge from the elementals. I can give somebody a dose of Bane Chant and hopefully pop the Obsidian Golems, and then with them dead, if I can kill them in a round, I can reorient everything, and I'll actually be in a really good place. His Immortal Guard won't put out enough hurt on any of these units to actually pop them in a turn, and I can continue keeping the pressure on them and hopefully destroy them. Excuse me. This is a great plan. Fantastic plan. Plan doesn't work out so great, but we'll see how it goes. So I kill another War Machine, I kill his hero, I reorient. The king is dead, I know he's dead, that's okay. And that's what he does. He front and flanks the wounded unit. I think that was a mistake. He does a front charge on the other unit of Ironclad. And so this plan is actually kind of going as planned. The chaff is doing the chaff job, and that's fine. Yeah, that's what that looks like. He kills the king. So he manages to destroy both units. And again, that 18 attacks, hitting on 4s, he hit really, really well. And then, you know, he only needs 3s to wound because he's got Crushing 2 and he's got Vicious. So half of his failed wounds get re-rolled, which become probably other wounds, and it's just breaks them. That's fine, I suppose. I get my double counter charge, it should be okay. So there I am, waiting for it. And yeah, I get in there in the front with both of those units, and I cast Bane Chant, and I'm going to cast it on the Earth Elementals. To give them Crushing 2. No, that's a lie. I try to cast it on the Shield Breakers to give them Crushing 3 and drop them down to 3s, but I failed a Bane Chant. It doesn't go off. So I'm on Crushing 2 as normal, which is still pretty good. I should be able to break this unit in a single turn with 25 attacks on them, 18 attacks on the other guys. 4s to hit. It should be 21 hits. I should get at least 11 wounds or more. I should be able to break them. But I roll the wound, and it sucks. And I roll like 4 or 5 3s that would have been wounds had the stupid Bane Chant gone off. But I didn't do enough wounds to even come close to breaking them. They bounce off, and I'm in big trouble. Yeah, I did like 6 wounds out of both of those units. It was terrible. And this is probably where my last best hope to actually pull Disaster out from turn 1, from the top of turn 1, ended. It was right here. Yep. And he heals because they can heal those guys, so he heals like 4 of those wounds I did off, which is just insult to injury. And he double charged my shield breakers with his elementals and his Immortal Guard, and he killed them. And this is later in the game, but he's got some wounds on he hit my lesser elementals again with the last remaining bombard, whatever they're called, they're mortars. On the right-hand side, you can't see it. I don't think I had a picture of it, but my Berserker Lord charged into the horde of flame breath weapon guys and started doing some wounds to them just to kind of keep them from shooting. But he died eventually. This is sort of the end. I think this might be the last shot of the game. So I managed to get my elementals and my Greater Earth Elemental into the Obsidian Golems, and I finally killed them with a front and a flank. I turned to face his Immortal Guards, and this guy was coming across. Yeah, he died. This is him dying. This is all my dead guys, so he got shot off. And then there's that look again, and this is sort of the overall battlefield. He managed to get his other Immortal Guards into my backfield. They're going to kill my Armor Standard Bearer down there, and I'm going to have one more chance to pick up some points. Which I do. I don't get a picture of it, but I get I move my Greater Earth Elemental up, angle him to the flank, get my guys in the front, then use Surge to get the Greater Elemental into the flank. I did manage to pop that unit of Immortal Guard, but at the end of the day, he did much, much better. There was a scenario objective in this particular in this particular scenario, we each had an artifact in one of our units. Neither of us used them, so that's why I forgot to mention it. However, because he destroyed the unit that I had, the shield breakers that had it, he managed to get a bunch of bonus points. So at the end of the day, he won something like 18-2. So he pretty much kicked my ass. And that was the end of the tournament. So I went 1-1-1. I actually won for best sportsmanship, which is cool. That was nice. That's a first for me. I do have a habit of getting a little frustrated on the table if I'm not careful, so I have to be careful about that when I play. And anyway, it was nice to get that vote. This guy had a great looking army, and he was a lot of fun to play against. After we got through sort of like the first few rounds of us kind of feeling each other out, we both relaxed, and it was nice. I have to say that if you're strictly going to play dwarf models, you want to have dwarf models and you want to play competitively, I'm having a hard time seeing why you wouldn't choose to play Abyssal Dwarfs. Just looking through their army list today after the match, I was pretty surprised at how little they paid for how much better of units they have than regular dwarves. Their Immortal Guard is like Iron Guard. They have one less defense, but they don't have any waver point. And they hit on threes like everybody else, or like the Iron Guard. But they're healable with their wizards, which is pretty fantastic. Their obsidian golems are ridiculous. Those guys are undercosted at 210 points. That vicious should cost them more for their army, especially with crushing 2. It's sort of crazy what they're capable of. You give them a +1 to hit, or you give them elite, or you don't give them anything. You don't really need to. They're pretty amazing. The breath weapon guys with extra piercing, again, that's a horde. It's 25 shots. It's really, really good. Their mortars are good. Vicious as the armor-wide rule is so much better than Headstrong. I'm a dedicated good guy dwarf player. I'm never going to play my dwarves as Abyssal Dwarves. It's not going to happen. I can't abide playing bad guy dwarves. But they are legitimately, I think, a stronger army. Not really why I lost here. I lost here because I lost my power unit early in the game. I had a good plan. I did probably make a mistake there in the mid-game exposing my Ironclad to that flank, but I think they were dead anyway, so I don't know, maybe that was a good play, maybe it wasn't. But the thing about the Abyssal Dwarves is that you got all the options you need. You've got spellcasters that can do things, you've got flying chaff that can do things, you've got really powerful shooting, you've got very powerful melee units, you've got 2 different options for cavalry, both in terms of slave orcs and in terms of the mutant guys, whatever the hell they are, the half-breeds. You've got some excellent individual heroes you can choose from. So yeah, I think if you're going to play competitive dwarves, I think your best bet is to play Abyssal. If you're going to play regular dwarves, I think you got to focus on what dwarves do well, which is high defense, and then Berserk Brock Riders, which is basically all we do well. It's the only things we do well. End of the tournament thoughts. I played well, but not really, really well. So I left flanks exposed in all 3 games that had no business being exposed, and that was a problem. I probably could have used cover better to stop those mortars from hitting them. I probably could have been more patient with the Brock Riders, left them behind the woods for turn 1, brought them out of the woods for turn 1, so that on turn 2, maybe he doesn't get those rolls he needs, or maybe he's got more of a threat, and then by that time my individual is already in there killing mortars. Anyway, also, I could also make a different choice and bring the Brocks in to support the center. So that might have been a better choice, although I don't necessarily think my plan was bad. I think had he not detonated them in the first turn, I'd have been all right. Anyway, I think one of the things that is important about Kings of War is that you take a step back at the end of your turn before you're done moving, and you really look at the board and say, what can hit me that I'm not seeing? You really make sure nothing can get to you that you don't want to get to you. And that's tough. Sometimes, you're tempted to allow something to come into your flank because you think you'll survive it and then you'll have an advantage. And sometimes I can see how that's a useful sacrifice or a useful way to set a trap. But for the most part with dwarves, you don't have the movement to compensate to make that viable. You don't have any big flying heroes or anything that can come in and sort of pounce on them. So setting those traps is harder, and I think what you really need to do is play much more careful, never expose a flank, always force them into a front charge, always do your counter charging. That's when you flank. I think that's important. So I got to get better at that. I am again convinced of the amazing usefulness of elementals and greater earth elementals and a stone priest. I am again convinced of the amazing usefulness of berserker Brock Riders. I am again sort of convinced that organ cannons are only useful every now and again and probably aren't worth the points. My flame cannon did really not a whole lot this entire tournament. It's 18 shots at 4, and then usually takes 4s to wound, so at best you're doing, 9 hits and 4 wounds. If you take 3 of them, okay, that starts to add up. But then you're limited in the movement. They don't move like Ratkin ones. So I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it at all. I think I might just want to switch out all my war machines for a couple of troops of rangers or a regiment of rangers or something like that. Somebody who can hold objectives and do other things in the game that I need done. We'll see. War machines I think are useless unless they're 4-up with piercing or 4-up basically. And I think that I could do triple Joran bombards and do what some of these guys did, but I don't know. I can't trust the 5-up. Anyway. So I hope you enjoyed this report. I like this list. I think it's a decent list. I think I can probably tweak it a little bit and make it even better. I'm thinking more and more that as cool as he looks, the king on a large beast isn't that great. Doesn't do all that much for my army. I can probably take a cheaper king and put him in a gyrocopter by giving him wings of honey maze, and he can do more work for me and be more utilitarian for me than the guy on the large beast is, which means I can permanently add the guy on the large beast to a unit of them and then call them honor guard allies and use them in lists that allow allies. So yeah, that's kind of my thinking. That's all I've got. I hope you enjoyed the videos. Please feel free to post any comments. I'll try to get to them and respond. I'm not that great about it. It might be a week or two before I get back to you. It depends. I don't get email alerts or anything like that for some reason. So anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and I hopefully will talk to you soon.